Hey everyone, Carrie Corley here with Lakewood Family Therapy. I wanted to share a real quick story with you. I was hanging out with a couple of friends the other day, and his husband and wife. I've known her for quite some time, and she was sharing with us how she'd been doing some really good introspective work on really feeling like a burden in her relationships, and not just her marriage, but like all of her relationships for going back to when she was a child and feeling this burden. And as she was talking, I began to think to myself, what would it look like if her husband would encourage her in this struggle? And so when she paused, I reflected back like, hey, what would it look like if your husband would come alongside you, or even maybe when you're having these conversations or conflicts or whatever it is, and say like, hey, I think what's happening right now is you're feeling like a burden. And what I want you to know is that you are not a burden to me. She sat there and she looked at me and she said, I'd fall out of my chair. He would never say that. And then she looked at him. And I scrolled over to him too, and I looked and I said, what do you think, man? And he said, I don't know, that's just not in my character. And I was like, what if it was? What if it was something that you attempted to correct in your life, even though it's not in your character? And he began to think. While he began to think, I thought back on my own life. I thought back to a time when a good friend of mine in college said, hey, Carrie, you have a negative outlook on life. And because you have a negative outlook on life, you're very sarcastic. And your comments can be very hurtful and biting. And I remember thinking about that, which, by the way, my wife confirmed some 3 years later that was very true, that I was very sarcastic and very biting in my comments. And I began to pursue God and think, what would it look like if he changed that part about me? So back to my friends. I think that in their marriage, God could move in his life, in the husband's life, and bring about that character change. Ephesians 5:1 says that we are to be imitators of God. And the Christian life is never over, literally. There's always opportunity for growth. And so even though we don't have something in our character, doesn't mean that God doesn't want us to possess it. And so I encouraged him, and I encouraged you as well, to think about the opportunities for growth in your family relationships, in your marriage relationship, in your relationship with your children, in your relationships at work, where it might not be in your wheelhouse, but it's definitely in God's wheelhouse. And he's for sure interested in you having a heart and a mind just like his, so that he can reach the nations, so that he can change lives, so that he can change your family, and so that he can change marriage. The other day in staff meeting, I was sharing with my staff about my struggles with negativity and sarcasm, and they all started looking at each other in confusion. Finally, one of them spoke up and said, "You're the most positive person we know." I almost began to cry, because it was a testament to how amazing God is and what a wonderful work he had done in my life up to that moment. So I'm going to leave you with this nugget. You might not have it in your character to be whatever it is that your spouse desires or whatever it is your children desire, but God has it in his. And I think you should chase it with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. All right. Thank you for listening. And you have a wonderful weekend. Love you.